Did you happen to see this guy from Idaho last week who broke the Guinness World Record by wrapping his wife from the bottom of her feet up to her chin in plastic wrap? And it took him a minute and 57 seconds. He got all of her. If you tried to do that to your wife, how long would you last before she just killed you?
A wrap her in plastic wrap? Like, well, obviously she's willing to do that, but I don't know. This sounds like a wild adventure. I don't know if she could kill me if I'm wrapping her in plastic wrap. I bet Dexter would hold the record in that, actually, though.
I think Dexter would crush that. My question for this guy is, why did he stop at her neck?
That's a good one.
Let's get loaded, because this is the Loaded Box Podcast,
where we never finish first because we finish last.
Oh, welcome back to the Loaded Box Podcast. Your hosts, Ben Morgan and DJ Primo. DJ, we are back. We're doing our second fantasy football rankings podcast episode of this offseason. We're drinking some beers. What do you have there? That looks like a new beer you hadn't had on the podcast before.
You know what's funny? Okay, I was going to bring this up. It's a Deschutes Summer Ale. It's a Pilsner. You know what gets me? I'm a guy who looks for a new beer every time I go, a new six-pack, and I think you started to do that as well. And anytime I don't know why this works, but as a beer guy, I think this could just work on any beer guys. Anytime I see the words limited release, I'm probably going to buy it. Like, you got me fucked there. It's like, limited release, I better buy that shit right now.
That's hilarious. So I'm not that. That's a great marketing scam, by the way. They got you right by the palm. That's a great thing to know. I think my thing is if I see the words like chocolate and peanut butter together on the same thing on a beer, I am a sucker. I'm getting it every single time. I can't turn it down.
You're looking for beer or fucking ice cream?
Either way, no matter what aisle I'm in. If it's chocolate and if it's peanut butter, I'm in. Nice.
You can put it on limited release on Busch Light for me, and I'm buying that fucker right when I see it.
The rest of the stock. You're getting all of the cases at that point.
Yeah. Limited release. DJ's going to buy it.
Well, if you're not enjoying a beer, if you're at work, we'll let it slide. Otherwise, go ahead and crack a beer and join us. We're going to be talking quarterbacks ranked 1 through 12 today. And just like last week, we are going to, rather than kind of like dissect each player, we're going to be putting these players in different scenarios, bringing up questions about each of these guys that are in these rankings and talking more about it that way rather than just going player by player. We like to do things a little bit differently. We find this to be more fun. So if you missed last week's episode, check that out. We did quarterbacks ranked 13 through 24. But like I said, today we're doing 1 through 12. So DJ, my first question I want to ask to you for this, and wait the whole time because I don't want you to just blurt out your answer because I feel like it's obvious for you. But who is
Aaron
No, this is the opposite of this one. Which usually that's your go-to answer, but check this one out. The quarterback you think has the biggest chance of not finishing in the top 12. And before I get to that, I got one step ahead of myself. Obviously, the quarterbacks we're going to be talking about, you probably know who they are anyways, but I'll go from 1 to 12. We've got Pat Mahomes, Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Carson Wentz, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, and Jared Goff. So DJ, of those guys, which of those 12 guys do you think has the biggest chance of finishing outside of the top 12?
Did the top 12 recently switch?
It's based on ADP right now, so it could be.
Okay. Oh, wow. Jared Goff was in our discussion literally last week.
Yes, he was.
So what I would have, what it was last week would have been, or I guess the last week, it would have been Kyler Murray, Phillip Rivers, and Cam Newton in our last three after Russell Wilson. So now I'm confused. Now I'm just massively confused.
Well, you said the player that I thought was your guaranteed one. I'll just give you my answer because you kind of disappointed me here. I was even going to say, dude, we're consensus on this, right? Because it's Kyler Murray. He's quarterback 9, going as the first pick in the 8th round. So right before we started this podcast, I've been working on, it's my last article of a player from each team to target and a player from all the teams to avoid. And right now I'm doing the NFC West. As soon as I started this article, I wrote down Arizona Cardinals, player to avoid. Kyler Murray. I don't understand what I'm missing here. Like, I understand that guys like Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, they've come in, they found early success at, at like a smaller height than what we see as like the prototypical quarterback. Kyler Murray is shorter than those guys. He has a worse offensive line than those guys. And all these people are jumping in and saying, oh, he's going to find immediate success in the NFL. Dude, a rookie quarterback at that size with that offensive line is a recipe for let someone else take that dude in the 8th round. I am not going to have him anywhere on my radar this year when it comes to drafting.
I think the Cardinals could be heading down a Cleveland Browns type of bad decision making at quarterback.
No kidding.
Like history here, because like they're gonna make a bad decision to bring in I can't remember the head coach's name, dude from. Well, anyways,
oh yeah,
him and bad decision
Kingsbury.
to bring in the quarterback. What? Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury. Got it. So Kyler Murray, another bad decision. I think we're gonna look 10 years from now and just laugh at all the hype around Kyler Murray when he's not in the NFL anymore, and just die. Like, this was the guy they thought was going to be a guarantee, and they're going to have 10 quarterbacks 10 years from now. They're going to the Cleveland Browns type run. So yeah, I think he was the obvious one, but I have so many questions about a couple of guys. Like Cam Newton worries me because he was at 12 previously, and it's just that, like, I don't, like, that shoulder isn't completely healed. We saw how terrible he looked last year. He's not a guy I'm trusting as as my number one QB, even though he's such a threat. It's just after watching him last year, I just don't know. Like, hopefully he has an Andrew Luck type of bounce back. There's Deshaun Watson, who I've known that I don't want. Like, I don't think is going to be a QB1 this year. I know he can be, as easily has the potential to be. And then there's lots of questions. Carson Wentz, we haven't seen him play forever. I love him as a talent. I think he'll easily finish there. Baker Mayfield, we've seen a team that had no worries last year, so he could just go out there and do what he wanted, and they still went, 7-9 or whatever. So it's not like they blew the world away. It's not like they were amazing. So there's just lots of guys out there, I think, that are questionable. But yeah, Kyler Murray's the obvious one.
So DJ, all right, from moving forward here, I said, who is the one guy? You literally just talked about 6 of the 12 quarterbacks that we're going to talk about.
Guys, like it's such a hard one. There's so many guys I feel like I would move ahead of those guys, and I probably have in my rankings as QB1s that are in the QB2 spot right now.
I think I'm going back more to your wheelhouse with this next question. So, do you have your bearings underneath you a little bit? You got a little beer in you now? Are you good to go?
I thought that was great banter by me about all the quarterbacks in that top 12. I made it clear that it was Kyler Murray, and then I talked about other questions.
I think my favorite part would be that we could just like that could have been the only question we would have had to ask. Like that could be the podcast. If you would just elaborate a little bit more.
That was perfect. I'm like a professional.
This next question is going to be more in your wheelhouse. Average draft position has the top quarterbacks currently ranked as Pat Mahomes, Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers. What is your top 3 of those 3 and why?
So right now I have Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, and I go to the other old Wiley veteran in Drew Brees.
So you don't even have Mahomes in there.
No, and again, maybe I have him at number 6, which isn't terrible. But there's going to be natural regression. He's not going to throw for 4,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, whatever the fuck he did last year. And Aaron Rodgers, to me, it's consistency. But Aaron Rodgers is, I think, the most consistent quarterback in the league for the last however many years of fantasy. He's going to finish like in your top 5, no matter what. So that's like your guaranteed guy. You're not going to miss on Aaron Rodgers. You just can't. It's impossible. Andrew Luck, we saw what Andrew Luck was. He's easily number 2 for me. His offensive line is amazing. He is maybe the closest thing to Aaron Rodgers I've seen. He's really good. And then Drew Brees with all the weapons that he now doesn't have a ton of weapons, but he has some really good weapons in Alvin Kamara. Did they officially sign Theo Riddick?
Oh, I don't know if I saw that or not.
Okay, I know they brought him in, so that would be really cool for him to have. That would be another weapon. Obviously, they both are threats. And then I think, God, I'm just blanking on names now. Traquan Smith is going to be great as well. So I just, there's a lot of weapons in that New Orleans offense that I like, and it's just Drew Brees. It seems like he's Tom Brady-ish. He's just going to continue to be good. So those are my top 3 guys.
I ended up going Andrew Luck, Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and a while back I wrote an article on loadedboxpodcast.com that said, here's your options at your like quarterback one overall, and you literally can't really go wrong taking any of them. But if I had to take one, I would take Luck. And if you remember last year, you were like, dude, draft Luck. Be confident in him. He's always been great no matter who's been around him. Man, he came back in and he showed like I am fantasy football gold at the quarterback position. Not only is he a year healthier, but he proved that he was back. They've got Devin Funches. They already had now they have two tight end options with Doyle and Ebron. They got a slew of running backs. They are obviously he has great chemistry with T.Y. Hilton. They brought in Paris Campbell. The most important thing, that offensive line in front of him last year was the best he's ever seen, and it translated on the field. You talk about consistency. That dude, didn't he go on like a streak last year of like 8 games where it was like 3 or 4 touchdowns in every single game? Not only was he super consistent, he was giving you boom weeks from the quarterback position, and you were getting him super late. Obviously, he's going to be going earlier in drafts now, but man, that's why he's my clear cut number one. And I kind of want to move on, but I have Mahomes a little bit higher than Rodgers, just because you talk about the consistency. And I agree. Rodgers is going to be super consistent this year. That's why he's my number 3. There's not a huge difference between them. There is going to be regression from Patrick Mahomes. I don't disagree with that. But we've seen Tyreek Hill get cleared now. We've seen the chemistry that Mahomes has with Hill, with Watkins, with Travis Kelce. He has a plethora of options to go to as well. I can't think that the regression is going to be so big that it knocks him out of that top 3. Like you said, even if he doesn't throw for 5,000 plus yards and 50 touchdowns, he was still so much better than all the quarterbacks last year. You could take off like 50, 60 points. He's still quarterback 1. So even with a little bit of regression, he's still going to be up there when it's all said and done. And you said everything about Rodgers you need to, but I think that's how I have to list him right now, the Luck, Mahomes, Rodgers.
I don't know. I don't know if I could trust Andy Reid. It was his first year. He's too cocky. Again, there's going to be regression. It could be a huge regression, to be honest with you. His running game is going to suffer. The one good thing is the defense is probably still going to be crap. So he's going to have to continue to throw the ball no matter what, because people are going to be able to score on the worst defense, I think, maybe in the league last year in Kansas City, especially their secondary. So they will continue to be in those high-scoring games, which is a positive for Mahomes, but I don't know. You see that, and you're going to see regression no matter what. I'm going to trust the guys that I've seen do it over and over again, and not the one guy that's done it did 1 year.
This next question is for those wait to draft a quarterback guy, which you and I both are. So I think this is another one that's right in our wheelhouse here. But which of these guys, and I think your answer is probably obvious because I didn't know how high you were on Drew Brees prior to this. But which one of these guys would you like realistically take at that draft position, or even better, would you take both of these guys where they're being drafted at right now? And the two guys are Matt Ryan, who's going as the 3rd pick in the 7th round, and Drew Brees, who's going as the last pick in the 7th round. Guys like you and I, we'll wait sometimes like 8th, 9th round, maybe even 10th sometimes to take a quarterback. Are you comfortable, in your case, with Drew Brees, taking him right now at the end of the 7th?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the end of the 7th, that's pert near 8th. I don't know. I don't know. It depends on who's on the board, but I'll do you one better than both those guys. I mean, I would be comfortable taking them, but there is one guy I like more that I'm probably just going to wait for another round or two, and that's Phillip Rivers. That's the guy I'm looking for going at the middle of this 9th round. If that guy falls to me with all the weapons that he has, I'm going Phillip Rivers. Yes, I'm okay with Drew Brees there. Matt Ryan, never. No. But I'm comfortable with Drew Brees in that spot. But I'm going to wait for Phillip Rivers. I'm going to add one to your list. Again, I'm going a little bit off script, but I'm waiting for Phillip Rivers at 9.06 right now, or whatever it might have changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got him going right now at the end of the 10th right now for Rivers in half-point PPR.
Better.
In half-point PPR leagues. I get that, and I guess I kind of wanted to say, like, which quarterback, like, how high are you going on the rankings with, like, okay, I'm not taking Andrew Luck because I'm not taking Luck or Rodgers or Watson because I don't take quarterbacks in the 5th round.
Gotcha.
I'm not taking Baker Mayfield in the 6th. In the 7th, you've got like Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Carson Wentz. Do you like any of those guys enough to say, hey,
Yeah.
like this is my point, or where's your point where like this would be the first quarterback I would take?
Well, it's Drew Brees.
Drew Brees.
It's Drew Brees in the seventh. Yeah, in the seventh round there. Carson Wentz comes in right behind him. I'm
Yep.
comfortable taking him too. I honestly think in the drafts that we're in, he'll drop a little bit more. But I'm a big Carson Wentz fan as well. He just scares me a little bit more, but I'm willing to take that risk because I think I can grab another really good quarterback later anyway. So it's not that big of a deal.
I'm with you on Breeze. He's probably the highest right now that I would take, but I have this feeling that in at least one of my leagues, I'm going to be that guy who early 7th round takes Matt Ryan because of what he did 2 years ago. Like, I sort of think that he still has that in him. I know Kyle Shanahan's gone, but man, it's the receivers that I just love. It's Julio, it's Kelvin, it's Austin Hooper in another year with them. I think Matt Ryan, he's not going to be like the 45 touchdown MVP. I don't see that again. But when it comes to consistency, if you want a safe, sure thing at quarterback, if you can't get Breeze, if you think if he's either gone or if you don't want to wait quite that long, Matt Ryan's my guy, and I want to hear what you have to say about that because you're kind of like the anti Matt Ryan guy. I just think there's so much positive surrounding him. Atlanta's like my sneaky team to make some noise this year, and if they do that, it's going to be because of Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan has burned me one too many fucking times for me to ever draft that piece of shit again. Here's another advice I'll give to fantasy football players that I think is important. Don't just draft. I mean, you're gonna like more than one guy, more than one quarterback. So it's like, if I get Philip Rivers in one draft, my first draft in the 10th or 9th round, the next draft that I get, maybe I jump up a little bit more and grab a guy like Drew Brees. So I'm not just grabbing Philip Rivers in all three of my drafts because if it turns out to be awful, then I'm stuck with that. I fucked up in those leagues. So it's like
Matt Stafford for me last year.
Yeah, and it does happen. Like I wasn't a huge Kerryon Johnson fan last year, but I was like medium on him, and I drafted him in one just because it was really great value, and I ended up being. I mean, he got injured, but when he was playing, I ended up being wrong on Kerryon Johnson, which I was fine with. I was more worried about the Lions than I was Kerryon, but
Right.
you have to mix up guys you like. Like you're obviously going to like multiple guys. Don't focus on. There is sometimes you're going to grab like one guy is guaranteed. If you get Devontae Adams in every league, that's fine. Like, who cares about that? But if you're looking quarterbacks or things like that, or guys, 5th round or later, don't just keep drafting the same guy because just draft other guys that you like in those other rounds throughout your drafts.
As soon as you started saying like, well, if you like a certain guy, like you can get him in every draft. In my head, I'm like, all right, he's gonna go with like one of like 3 players here. I bet he goes Devontae Adams.
Yeah, but it's obvious because that's like first 2-3 rounds, right? Like there's some guys that you just feel really good about. Yeah, that's okay taking those guys if you have that same spot and that opportunity there. Like I took Devontae Adams in every league last year, and it worked out perfect for me.
Worked out swimmingly. You just got to avoid injury.
Yeah, Michael Thomas, all those guys, receivers. You got Le'Veon or
right.
Those top running backs, anything like that. So
yeah, there are a pair of quarterbacks who sort of make not their living, but they can get it done on the ground at numbers 10 and 11. Those quarterbacks are Cam Newton and Russell Wilson. If you have to pick one of those guys, which one has your preference?
Well, I kind of hinted at this earlier with my questions on Cam Newton. I mean, it's Russell Wilson. I don't know how he's going so low and continues to be so underrated. I hate him. I honestly do. But when it comes to fantasy, that guy is consistently going to run around, get some rushing yards, and just throw stupid touchdowns that are somehow going to work. I'm assuming people are worried about his wide receiver core. He's never. I mean,
that's the thing. Has he ever had like a dominant wide receiver core, anyways?
That's where I was going with it. It's never been a dominant wide receiver. It's been Doug Baldwin, right? And he was the under the radar guy that didn't like. He's not Kelvin Johnson or like any AJ Green who's now injured or anything like that. But
right.
It's Russell Wilson. He's going to make plays happen. They're not always. He's still not like the quarterback that's going to be the best quarterback in the league, but he's always going to be good. He's always going to be fantasy relevant. He's probably going to finish top 7 at worst. Cam Newton, there's so many questions surrounding them. And I want to jump back. I'm done with that. I chose Wilson. You did mention Funchess earlier. Did you not see that he got injured today?
I saw that, but then I also read a report that like he had his helmet back on and he was running around again later. So I don't know if that was
Oh,
true or not.
I was in the car and all I saw was that he was carted off at one point.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm just going off pure speculation right now, what I saw on social media. So who knows? It wasn't anything credible. So that could be up in the air. Who knows? And then the AJ Green news, because when you were in the car potentially too, out 6 to 8 weeks. He's got
Yep,
some tearing
I
in that
saw.
ankle, so that's interesting too from the wide receiver position. But we'll have to see how that plays out because he's definitely going to do a little sliding if he's not going to play until mid to late September.
Which really sucks because I was like trying never to talk about AJ Green in these podcasts because he's kind of like one guy that I think could just have continued to draft, and he is when healthy top 5 wide receiver in general just in the league. Like he's so good, but yet people seem to forget about him, and that ligament tear in his ankle or however many tears kind of sucks. And then it's just he's had those issues, so now it's like people are going to draft him, but where's the value
Right.
good if he may just keep injuring that and are not look the same? Because when he does come back, it's still a lower leg injury, and I hate that for wide
Oh,
receivers.
it's terrible. Well, that's the funny thing too, because when you think of fantasy, you think of I want guys on teams that are going to be on like these electric offenses now, like the Rams and the Chiefs and the Packers and the Colts. AJ Green is that guy who's never been on that electric offense, but has consistently produced. He's kind of like the modern day like Calvin Johnson and Andre Johnson, those types of guys. So yeah, they were gonna naturally fall back a little bit. But like you said, now even if you get him as a steal, you can't be very confident. Like even when he comes back, like, yep, he's going to just jump in and produce the way that he always has. Because man, that ankle and leg injury for a wide receiver who's kind of racked up a few injuries now over the last 2 3 years, not a good thing. We mentioned you being in the car. Why don't you tell the people where you were at? I think you made a trip to Green Bay today to do a little bit of camp observations.
Yeah, I went and checked out. I actually had to go up to my cottage up north. Just living the life. Working hard, grinding all the time. Every now and then, disaster strikes. Had to go clean up the cottage. It's not all daisies and rainbows when you're at the cottage. Sometimes you got to clean up some trees. Sometimes you get to lay on the lake and sip some beers. Anyway, so I was up at the cottage.
Sometimes you got
Figured
to
I'm
go
only
over to
about an hour.
Packers camp.
Yeah, I was figured I'm only about an hour away from Green Bay. I'm sitting there Saturday night last night, and I'm just like, should I go? Should I go to this? And then all of a sudden I was like, fuck it, I'm an hour away. Like, why not? So me and my son went over to the Packers training camp this morning, and we were there for a couple hours watching the Packers practice. It was awesome.
What's the any observations you made from the practice that you were able to watch? Anything that you've been reading up as a diehard Packer? I know that this kind of bodes well because Aaron Rodgers falls into this class of quarterbacks 1 through 12, so it's relevant to what we're talking about. So I'll let you have your time here on some observations from Packers camp so far this offseason.
Yeah, number one, I think Aaron Rodgers should be the top quarterback. He's cocky, he's confident, he's having fun out there. He's got that hit article that wrote up on him. Some first-year wide receivers are now going into their second year. Even Trevor Davis is flashing out there a little bit. Made a huge catch on the sidelines today. Marcus. Everybody looks good. The one thing I noticed, Aaron Jones should be just shooting up your ADP, right? Jamal Williams is out with a hamstring injury, but Aaron Jones is just getting all the first team reps where he wasn't doing that last year. He's getting all the reps. He's running routes. They're using him in the passing game. I've always said he's a better pass catcher, and everybody thought that Jamal Williams was a better pass catcher. I think Aaron Jones, and I'm confident that he is, and now they're going to use him in those situations. There was a situation yesterday I saw where he ran a wheel route against Blake Martinez, who is one of the best linebackers in football that people don't even realize that he led the league in tackles 2 years ago. I think he was top 3, even number 2 last year in tackles at linebacker. Ran a wheel route and beat him on a big play yesterday in scrimmaging. So Aaron Jones is a guy that even could be a high threat in PPR if they're going to use him in the pass game. I'm really excited about them running multiple plays out of one formations with crosses, and just excited to see how Rodgers is with actually guys coming open because of the design of the offense. That should be fun to watch.
In 20 seconds or less, tell me why The Green Bay Packers would be idiots for trading for Melvin Gordon.
It's just a waste of money, right? They spent a bunch of money on their defense, and why spend money on a running back who has maybe a year or two left when you have Aaron Jones on a rookie contract? Don't waste your time. It just doesn't make any sense financially.
I like it. I'm with you on that one. That's why I wanted to let you have the. I knew we'd have a similar opinion on that one. But before we get to my next question about my boy Baker, let me tell you real quick about Pristine Auction because we are going to be doing another giveaway leading up to the 2019 NFL season. In the meantime, we can get you an extra $5 to put towards any item that you win at pristineauction.com by entering the code LOADED in the registration code field when you create your account. Pristine Auction has daily auctions. They've got week-long auctions. Tons of stuff for all sports for the man cave. So head over to pristineauction.com, enter registration code LOADED. Get yourself a free $5 on behalf of the Loaded Box podcast. DJ, let's talk about my boy Baker Mayfield because right now he is quarterback 5. He's going as the 10th pick in the 6th round. Has your tune changed on Baker as an NFL quarterback, or do you think he's going this high in drafts because of the likes of Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and the running backs they've brought in over the last 2 seasons?
Again, what did we see out of Baker last year? He came in house money. Team's not playing well. I mean, the team wasn't great at that point. They didn't really have too much of a chance to make the playoffs, and he could just kind of go out there and wing it and do what he had to do. I think has a chance to be really good. I really do. He was more accurate than I thought. Much more poise in the pocket. I did like that. And he's much more confident in his second year. I guess it's a year and a half now with Freddie Kitchens. At least they got that garbage out of there in Cleveland, which is very nice. I'll move him up my rankings, right? I haven't moved my rankings yet to your chagrin, but I'll pop him up. He's at 12 right now. He's way too close to Deshaun Watson. He's better than Deshaun Watson. He'll have a better season than Deshaun Watson. I might move him up 2 or 3 spots. He's got too many weapons. I think Njoku could have a huge year, a monster year. I'm waiting for him to just explode. Like he keeps having flashes, and he's just an athletic freak. He's like Vernon Davis. Like he's like the modern day Vernon Davis right now. So he's gonna be something special. But him and then Callaway and Beckham and there's too many fucking guys. Like I don't even know. I'm wondering if they'll just get in fights. Like I'm worried that they'll just explode because there's not enough balls to be thrown around. Because Callaway has been a known issue. Odell wants the ball. Jarvis demands the ball because just what he does. They might not be able to give the ball to Nick Chubb this year.
I have 3 things just as takeaways from your analysis. I'm going to see if I can remember all 3 of them here in order. First, this is episode 207. First time I think we've ever said the word chagrin.
Maybe.
That's neat. 2, I don't remember what my second one was, but 3, I did that article on our website last week about like camp being opening. Let's read a bunch of tweets. People are overacting. People are going nuts. Like we saw everything. And while I was going through Twitter to find the ones I wanted, there was like an American Airlines thing where this wife cracked her husband over the top of the head with a laptop, and people had videos of it. And my caption to that one was, the Cleveland Browns locker room if they start out 0-5 this year, because I'm with you on that. Man, there are some egos, there is some moxie, there is a lot of stuff going on in that locker room. So hope to God they start like 4-1, otherwise some shit might hit the fan. But if you know this, and if you've listened to the podcast, the listeners know this, I've always been on Baker Mayfield. I never anticipated him being a top 5 fantasy football quarterback as early as his second year. That's why it's just a little bit mind-blowing to me, and I'm just grateful that I'm the fantasy player that waits to take a quarterback because I don't see as huge of a week-to-week difference from quarterback 5 or a quarterback like 9 and 10. So I'm probably not going to take Baker Mayfield at that point, but that's just because of my draft preference. But I think when you put in his natural ability, what he did show his rookie year, what he's just always had, And now you just added a top 3 NFL wide receiver in Odell Beckham. You've got the guy who demands the ball and who's probably going to be okay taking a little bit lesser role if it's to OBJ in Jarvis Landry. And yeah, and then like you said, you have the most athletic tight end in the league in David Njoku. The pieces are in play. The Browns, literally, you could make an argument. They went from the worst team in the NFL for a decade to like, man, this is our window. We are in win now mode. We got the quarterback on the rookie deal. We've surrounded him with playmakers. They're making some moves a little bit on defense. That team is set up to like, it could be boom or bust. I feel like that's cliche about the Browns right now, but I don't think Baker's going to be my fantasy quarterback this year, but I get why he's ranked where he's ranked.
And when I talk about this is the case for all of our position, or I guess nope, just for quarterback. When I talk about QB, like my QB1 or whatever, it's I'm talking about where I think he's going to finish at the end of the year. And then when I go ADP, I'm thinking my QB1 should be drafted in I ideally think that the QB1 should be drafted 5th round, like at best, honestly.
Yeah.
These guys are what, 3? Like, what is Patrick Mahomes, 3rd round?
Yeah, Pat Mahomes right now is going as the 5th pick in the 3rd round in half PPR leagues.
Yeah. Way too early.
That's crazy early.
Well, I'm not going to draft any of those guys. I'm not going to get half of these. I'm not going to get the first 6 guys.
Right.
Nor do I really want them. But I'm 100% not going to get them because there's just those guys. It's just too early for me. I'm like, I think the first quarterback should be drafted in round 5 at best.
Mm-hmm. Here's a guy that you kind of briefly touched on earlier when I said you answered all of the questions in one. But Carson Wentz right now ranked as quarterback 8. It was not long ago, man, when he was the MVP frontrunner for a team that eventually went on without him to win the Super Bowl. Now we're 2 years removed from that significant knee injury. Are you comfortable with Wentz as your fantasy team starter, or did last year kind of shake you off a little bit on that?
No, I love Carson Wentz. Like, there was that one year the year that you're talking about, the MVP year, where I was like, I'm not in on him. I'm not on him yet. I kept pulling off, and you kept saying, why not? And then finally, boom, I'm on him, and then he tears his ACL. I think I may have jinxed Carson Wentz because he only had a full, good season since I said a good, year since I jumped on the Carson Wentz train. But, I mean, there was throws that he was, and I'm not saying, I'll never say, there's only one person I'll ever say that they made throws that nobody else can make, and that's Aaron Rodgers.
Dan Marino?
No. Oh. But Carson Wentz is making throws that just Aaron Rodgers can make. He was doing that, but he was adding the Russell Wilson stuff to it, where he was quickness, back, forth, left and right, flipping guys over his shoulders, then making a throw. He has that ability, and I hope his injury doesn't hamper him. But people love Carson. His hype trade is so high. It's amazing. I wouldn't be surprised to see his ADP just continue to rise because people are on the Carson Wentz train. You have to be. I mean, I think you have to be. There's so much potential on a team that, for the last 2 years, has looked really good. And when he was on that MVP run, I would have thought they were going to win They did win the Super Bowl. I would have thought they were going to win the Super Bowl with him.
Oh, for sure.
That year, easily.
And they somehow pulled it off. And you thought as soon as he was gone, they had no chance.
Yeah, it was. I know, it was incredible that Nick Foles somehow pulled his dick out of his ass and did that. But Carson Wentz was far and away the best quarterback.
Yeah.
I would be happy with him. He will be my starting quarterback on one of my teams because I think people will let him drop in the leagues we're in. But I think nationally, you're going to see his ADP rise as it goes on and his hype starts to go in preseason. So hopefully he can get. I know it's kind of a fallacy about him and Elshon not always being great together, but hopefully we can get more on page with him. Mm-hmm. Aguilar is still a great receiver. Obviously, Ertz is with him there.
Oh, yeah.
He potentially is number 1 tight end that people just don't even realize. So
it's weird. That's what I was going to say. You brought up David Njoku during the Baker Mayfield. Back to my point 2 of things I was going to say during yours. You've now talked about David Njoku and Zach Ertz and talking about fantasy rankings. You might even start making tight end fantasy rankings this year. Are we going to see something new out of you?
No, because I won't draft those guys. Somebody's going to take them way too early.
One other thing you said about Carson Wentz there was like, how could you not get on board with this guy? Like, I feel like it's common consensus that everyone's back with him. I'm glad you said that because I feel like I'm taking the other side of the fence here. Not that I'm against having him, but of the top 12 guys, he's one of these guys that's going in the area of where I usually select my quarterback that it's I'm struggling getting fully on board with. I only have him ranked as quarterback 10. um, the reason why I don't think I'm going to get him is because I think if I wait for 9 quarterbacks to go off the board and then select my quarterback, Wentz is going to be one of those guys that's already gone. So I don't think I'm going to have a chance at him just based on where I have him ranked. But yeah, he has top 5 probably quarterback potential this year. And if he can prove it this year, he's going to end up being in that conversation like with Watson, with Rodgers, in that Mahomes and Luck area. He has that potential. He's shown that early in his career. I can't put my finger on what's really holding me back from going all in on Wentz right now. And I think maybe a part of it is we saw him burst onto the scene and do super well right away. And then he got hurt. And then Foles came in and was doing similar things. And then I think Wentz came back too early. Like he came back too early and he showed like hints of like struggling. And then once he went out, bam, Foles came right back in and just mopped up and made the playoffs. Like it made me feel not that that's a system where like any quarterback can thrive, but it just made me a little bit lower on Wentz than what I originally was because I was super high on Carson Wentz, and it's just dropped me down a little bit on him. So I can confidently say he's not going to end up being my starting quarterback on any fantasy team, and that's weird because he's kind of in my wheelhouse.
Do you get as bored when I talk as I do when you talk?
No, because what I do is I try to just imagine just you actually being a nice person.
Oh. I mean, I listen, but I'm like, fuck, is this kid ever going to stop? I really hate listening to him talk.
So Jared Goff is currently going as quarterback 12, the ninth pick in the ninth round. Dude, is this guy going later than he should, considering he's the quarterback on one of the league's best offenses? That, and not only is it one of the best offenses, but this offense has a huge question mark right now at running back, which did not exist because Todd Gurley was the fantasy MVP last year. Now it's still a really good offense that might be passing more. Is he going later than he should?
Gurley's practicing now, though, apparently.
Well, yeah, he's practicing, but you can't tell me his workload's not going to decrease.
I mean, I can't tell you it is.
So he's not going too late.
Here's what I want to say about Jared Goff. There's lots of talk about Jared Goff out there that, and it may be true, and I might not be wrong at all because we saw kind of in the playoffs, especially in Super Bowl, like what happened when they took some of his playmakers away. But there's lots of talk that it's just Sean McVay pulling the strings, and Jared Goff looks good because of what he's done for him. So he's just literally maybe the all-time system QB of all time, as in like the fact that his guys are coming wide open. He's accurate enough and good enough to make the throws, but if he had to like go outside and had to open up and have more freedom, so think SEC, think Baylor quarterback or Big 12. He's essentially that version of a quarterback in the NFL. Like, the offense was so good. He was getting Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, all those guys just wide open for him because of the design of the offense. And it was hard for him to miss those passes, right? How many times did you see Robert Woods come wide open? Either it was always coming over the middle, right? It was some point over the middle, or he was coming across the middle and he ended up on the left or right side. I said to my buddy intern Logan last year multiple times, like, Robert Woods catches more balls over the middle than any other player in the NFL, and that was just my made-up statistic. I'm convinced that it's true, but there is a lot of talk of Jared Goff, like, literally just being carried by Sean McVay, and if they have to open up and give him more freedom because the offense starts to be figured out a little bit more, that there could be problems for Jared Goff. So that makes me hesitate because there are actually offensive coordinators and even the coordinators that have those thoughts that I heard reported on a podcast I recently listened to.
Oh, sorry. Is it my turn to talk?
Yeah.
I wasn't listening to what you said there. Sorry. Um,
Genius.
no, I actually agreed with what you said there. I'm not a believer as Goff as like this top tier NFL quarterback, which through the first half of last year, like people were anointing him like, dude, he was trash because of Jeff Fisher. And yeah, Sean McVay, all it did was like open the door for him. Well, it's a little bit of both. Like, I don't think that McVay is making Goff awesome, but I also don't think that that Goff is just naturally this gifted quarterback that's like an elite starter level. Like, it'll be interesting when his contract comes up. Like, he's going to get paid. Is it the Rams that are going to be the ones that do it, or do they think enough in their system where like, well, we can plug in a guy like, say, like if they were in that situation with Nick Foles this year, where they could just bring in another guy, although Foles got paid like fucking crazy. But man, I'm not quite sold on Goff being like anything more than like an above average starter right now. But man, as the ninth pick in the ninth round, I'm all about that ADP. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You don't need to be an awesome damn NFL quarterback to be a good fantasy football quarterback. And I think that Gurley's usage is going to not plummet, but it's going to see a decrease. They're not going to trust Darrell Henderson and all these other second tier running backs to like totally take the load away here. You've got Cooks, you've got Kupp, you've got Robert Woods. I love your made up stat, by the way. That's a fantastic stat. I want you to never find a real stat on that, because I think what you made up is beyond any real stat that you could ever have. But because I agree with you, I think it's fantastic. He's going to have a plethora of opportunities as a late ninth, early 10th rounder. I'm all in on Goff. He can be the starter on 5 of my 6 teams this year, and I will be pumped about it.
You know what I hate more than anything when it comes to rankings in fantasy football, like across the board, like just the fantasy football industry? It's tiers. I hate tiers. You know, like tiers are so dumb because you put these 5 guys on this pedestal and you're telling me that the next guys just can't jump up. You're basically separating that tier and saying those other guys below just don't have a chance of jumping up to the other tier. You can't put guys in tiers. Just keep them in an order. I mean, it was something, I know it was either the quarterback 5 and quarterback either like 12, 13, 14, 15. One of those guys were separated by 3.7 points last year. Like, get your fucking tiers out of here. That's garbage. Like, especially in the fantasy football realm. Like, if you're going to like tier quarterbacks, like just in regular football, we're not talking fantasy. That makes a little more sense. But if we're talking fantasy football when it comes to points, I think that's the dumbest thing you can do. Is just rank them as they are, because you can't just say like, I can't just be like, oh, okay, I have Drew Brees in tier 1 and I have Deshaun Watson in tier 3, and then have them be right next to each other. I think it would look dumb. Like, I have them 2 tiers apart and now they're next to each other.
I get why people do it for the sole reason, like if they're doing it because like say they're on the clock and they're literally crossing people off of their rankings as they're doing it, and maybe they have a need at both quarterback and running back. Well, if that quarterback is still like in your top tier that's available, and the next best running back just went off in your tier 3 of running backs, and now you're onto your 4th tier of running backs, you could say, well, I value this quarterback a little bit more than this running back. But like you said, it's kind of up in your head. There's nothing scientific about it. So I've never been a tier system ranker. I've only just literally, I ranked players. I rank my players how I will take them. So on draft day, I don't really have many questions. Like I cross my players off, and I go with the next player on my list, because I put all my time in developing my list at the position where I feel like it's going to benefit me the most. So I'm with you a little bit on that.
Wouldn't you just always know who you like or value more at a position? It's just
you don't need like an imaginary line tiering them. I get it.
Yeah, not at all. I think that's the dumbest thing ever. I don't even need to rank. Like, I don't even need to bring my own rankings to a draft, because I know just looking through the list, if I just print off like anybody's list, if they're not the most ridiculous ones, like I know who I like more. Like, I'm gonna move certain guys in my head above those guys. I'm not gonna just go in the order that's given to me. It's like, you should just know. I don't know.
And
If you do your
listeners
homework
out
enough, it
there,
could be fine.
DJ does do his rankings. He will bring them to a draft, but he's not lying. He does not need them. 2 years ago, we had someone spill on them. They got totally destroyed. He went on without missing a beat. It was beautiful.
Don't have to. Winner.
I do need to hit on my pregnant wife advice for the week real quick here. If you find yourself in this situation where you have a pregnant wife and you've recently built a home and the landscapers are finishing up and they take the entire day and lay down the incorrect landscaping rock, don't bring up the idea of saying, would it be cool if they only replaced the stuff in the front and left the incorrect stuff along the sides and the back? You will not be yelled no any faster than if you tried to ask like your wife for like a threesome. That's how quick that no is going to happen.
I don't even. The thing I want to say right now is going to be so rude. I'm just going to not say it. We'd probably lose 10 listeners.
Do you happen to have any other Packers observations? Do you have any other quarterback talk? Anything else you'd like to get off your chest until we reconvene next week?
No, but I highly suggest that you go to a training camp if you live anywhere near any of your favorite teams. It's just great. Maybe not everybody's atmosphere is as good as Green Bay's, but I've been to Minnesota Vikings, which was fun. It was a great time. I do have to say that the Minnesota Vikings setup when me and you went was actually better than the Green Bay Packers because you could play all these games. You won some autographed like helmet when you threw it. There was a lot more stuff. They had a lot more like area of games and just stuff to do beforehand than what the Packers do. But the atmosphere for the Packers is probably second to none. They just fill up all the time.
Oh, definitely.
But, those are good times. I'd like to just go around to like one camp every year. So I think people, especially in our industry, I'm gonna just say that twice now tonight, should visit just multiple camps. I'm gonna fucking go to the Bears camp next year, I think.
No, I'm with you on that. I'm a lifelong Dolphins fan. Never even sniffed Dolphins camp. Never been in Florida during the time. But I've been to numerous other football camps. And like you said, you don't even need to be a huge fan of that team. It's a great experience. And like you said, like the atmosphere alone, like it's an NFL team. There's only 32 of them. I'm sure the atmosphere is pretty solid. But yeah, if you happen to live in Wisconsin, even if you're not a Packers fan, make it over to Lambeau and do Packers camp. It's fun. And like you said, the Vikings have moved locations since we last went there. But I went to the one last year, and yeah, they still do it right. They do a great job. You can do anything. You can bring a bunch of buddies there. You can bring your wife there. You can bring your kids there. It's literally like whoever you're with, you're going to have a good time. So that's a good ad. Good ad, DJ. Proud of you.
I won't bring my wife, though. I'll never do that.
Well, it's because she's wrapped in plastic wrap.
Goddamn right she is.
As always.
Stop at her neck either.
We're going up above the ears this time, honey. Check us out on Twitter at LoadedBox. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. Next episode, we will be doing our fantasy rankings, but we will be moving on to the running back position. We're available anywhere you listen to podcasts, because obviously you're listening to a podcast: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. DJ, send us away.
I have her wrapped up in the trunk, because if she suffocates or something more, then she'll die too. Bye.
Stan.